You can come to these classes for 5 years, but if you don't even apply the 2% that you know, eventually you can't build. I call them reference points. All of us in life have certain reference points that we return to, and these reference points are usually the building blocks that keep us moving forward. So, whatever, when you came to this first class and you heard me speak on new construction, for a lot of people that will be a starting reference point. They'll be like, man, I never thought about it. Then they start looking at their database and they're like, whoa, like I never thought I can make money in this area. Oh, this is how you can put a transaction together. So that becomes a reference point, because what happened was the new way of thinking, approaching the same thing, looking it from a different angle, but at the end of the day, we're looking at the same thing, but we're looking at it from a whole different perspective. The end goal is the same, but the roadmap to the end goal is different. And that's where, that's why I'm asking for people to consider them experts even at 2%, because the 2% you are an expert at that 2%. So act upon it. The 5% that you're an expert at, act upon the 5%. But if you act upon what you know, that will keep you moving forward to your next reference point. And these reference points help you build and establish certain confidence inside of you. So that first appointment with the builder, that first appointment with the developer, that first appointment with the financial institution, whatever that reference point is, that reference points will help you build upon that. And like I mentioned, I've sat down with many brokers in our office at, I would say, their first builder meetings or their first developer meetings. And those are going to be really strong reference points in their careers. They're going to look back and they're like, man, like I went to that class, I went to that meeting, I scheduled that appointment, and something truly came out of it. So that is what we talked about last week, that whatever level of expertise you're at in the new construction, whether it's open house, doesn't matter. Make sure you start acting upon it, and that's going to propel you going forward. Any questions just on that? So, if you're following us on Slack community, there are seasons, there's more activity, and there's seasons there's less activity. So our goal is to push as much information to you as possible regarding what is happening. And like I mentioned, many of you, of the phone numbers that we're posting there and the people, you should definitely reach out to those people and talk to them. One of the people I brought into our community yesterday was Jessica. She used to be at Key Bank. Now she's at Banner Bank, but she's in their business department. She does really, really good work. Meaning, if you go to her, she'll teach you business banking. She'll teach you about how things run in the banking world on the business side. She used to be a really good person for different equity lines, business lines, all of this. So she did a lot of that. She does that a lot for myself and a bunch of other clients for me. So this is what we were talking about, slowly exposing yourself to the business world. We always come back to this concept of creating business and doing business. So when market shifts happen, we have to constantly go back to recreating. I am in my own recreating and then doing the business. And you are also going to be recreating your business. Every time a market shifts, you have to be recreating your business, because everything is changing in the world of your buyers and your sellers. So the scripts you used 6 months ago, you can't use them now, because it takes 60 or 90 days to sell a home now. The scripts you used for buyers 12 months ago is not going to work. So we're constantly going back to recreating. And I'm always going to go back to these two columns, because if you're not recreating, there's no value that you can be providing in doing the business. So when I even meet with my builders, I go, you know what, it used to be we could do assessments every 12 months, now we have to do it every 6 months. Because the market's shifting so fast. The lenders are moving from one area to another. Programs that lenders could offer 6 months ago, they're not offering them anymore. So you're constantly recreating your business because the market is changing so fast. Your scripts are being recreated. Your objections are being recreated. So everything's getting recreated because we're constantly in a changing market right now. Every time rates go up, the market, there's a huge ripple effect, and that's been happening already for a year and a half. Anybody can say whatever they want, I mean, but you know, if they keep doing that in 2024, guess what? We're going to be coming back to this side. We have to keep recreating our businesses to fit whatever's going on in the market. So we have to be fluent, we have to be flexible, and we have to understand that we kind of follow where the market goes. So if houses are going to take 6 months to sell now, guess what? All of our pay structures just changed. If houses are, going, then you have to spend more money on marketing. Why? Well, because a home now takes 6 months, so I have to pay more for prints, I have to pay more for online marketing. So you're constantly recreating, constantly. And I mean, I don't know how much, I want, probably not every Friday I'm going to talk about this, but that's why, everybody comes to here, that's why I'm at Teams, because I want people to start to ignite their creativity and understand that the way they did business for the last, I think since 2012, everything has really changed in the last 24 months. And we all have to go back to the drawing board. I go back every 3 weeks. I'm like, things are slowing down now, I guess, we're going to have slower winters, and the run-up time of our markets is going to be spring and summer. So fall and winter are going to become, death valleys in our industry now. So I'm always recreating, always going to the board. Well, end of summer, some of summer was, we had a summer, I mean, but I'm just saying, like, we all have to go back and like, okay, how am I going to do this? How I'm changing? Okay, transactions are less, or transactions are taking longer. What does this mean for my personal financials? What does this mean for my business financials? Do I even have to maybe go get another job? I mean, for us, a lot of questions are coming up, and we all have to keep recreating ourselves on how that's going to work. And I'm going to say nothing is good or bad. It's just whatever is relevant to your situation and your journey. Some brokers go get management jobs. Some brokers go and work at maintenance companies. I mean, whatever, some people get part-time jobs to float them during the season. But I'm saying, like, we all have to be recreating ourselves because the market is definitely shifting. So we talked about first month mindset shift. The second month we talked about exposure. Now we talk about action. And action is produced only if we are creating action. I know the fundamentals of action in real estate is truly prospecting. Prospecting is probably the strongest tool, tool that has to be used in real estate. And what we're trying to achieve in our classes here is saying that you used to prospect, you used to run through certain levels of objections, you used to contact certain aspects of buyers and seller pools, but there's still a greater pool out there of buyers and sellers. And this is where action is produced through prospecting. How you prospect and what you prospect and what leads you prospect, this is what creates action. And this is why I'm telling you, go back to your database, go back to your client base, and maybe start adding services that you never used to add. But you're doing this to continue a conversation with your client. So one of the things in prospecting is add additional services. So, and I talk about new construction in the way, for example, a guy from our office texted me this week. It's like, hey, my client just bought a new home and he wants to build a shop. I was like, get in front of him and add value. Bring him an architect. Bring him a permit specialist. Bring him a designer. You're doing all of this because you want to keep adding value to your client, even though if it's not making money, but this is how you do drips on your clients. This is another form of drips, not just an email, but you're adding value. And once you keep adding value through prospecting, and we talked about this in yesterday actually in the teams meeting. In our market, 40% of jobs are intertwined with new construction. So if you help your client choose tile, if you help your client choose paint, if you help your client, do something that has to do with their house, that's you slowly adding services to your client. Yes, they might not pay you dividends now, but this is how you're dripping via prospecting on your clients. You're staying in touch with them. So prospecting, my first pillar is prospecting to your clients in an area that they care. It's not about what you care about, it's what they care about. If you can prospect in that area, you will be ahead of most people.
Can you give us an example of what you're talking about?
I just gave one, but let me think about another one.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm just trying to kind of get my head around like what.
So we're used to in prospecting, like we like to prospect in the areas of like, hey, let me give you market action updates, let me give you interest rates, right? So that's a value proposition that brokers usually give to their clients. But because we have so many other, like I mentioned in Clark County, in most markets, construction is such a strong faucet. Like contractors come to me for me to sell them lots and houses and all of that. Because when I'm on a construction site, I talk to them about real estate. So I don't only talk about the interest rate, I talk about framing, I talk about the carpet, I talk about tile. So I'm adding them a lot more additional services outside of just traditional broker information. And this is what creates, like for example, if I came in here, right? I mean, say whatever, but like if I were to sell this building, right, to a client, I would also be interested in what kind of carpet this client puts in this building.
Okay.
I would be interested in that.
Yeah.
Because my client's going to be interested in that too.
Okay, gotcha. Thank
so
you.
If my client's going to be interested in putting new paint, I'm going to send them to the Sherwin-Williams, where I have, reference points with the gal that could give them, the best 3 exterior colors to a house. So what I'm doing is I'm adding additional services to my prospecting tools. Instead of just, oh, you want to know what the next rate is? Or do you know how many homes sold in your area? I mean, those are fine, but you want to add more services.
So kind of like, you want to be the go-to guy anytime they need information on, I want to build a shop. David, let's call David, he'll know.
Correct.
Resources.
You become a bigger resource hub, and you use that as your drip. If you don't do that, they'll go somewhere else. What I always say is people, by organic momentum, they will find stuff, right? But if you wedge your way into that, you are the one that you're going to be the reference point. So you came to me and I'm giving you a reference point for business management and banking, right? What does that have to do with this? Nothing. But what's going to happen is the minute you meet Jessica and you talk to her, you're going to say, oh, David connected me to Jessica. And that's going to register with you for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to drip on you another time. And anytime you meet with Jessica, you're going to remember me, because you're not going to remember Banner Bank because Jessica moved from KeyBank, but you will remember me because I was that insert. I made that insert between me and that person. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I created a vendor spreadsheet of recommended vendors of all kinds, across the gamut. So as soon as I get a phone call, I can, in a split, I can give them a reference. And that's what I've done in my neighborhood too, is try to instill that I'm the go-to person for vendors. I'm not someone to tell you about your home value, I'm someone to tell you about who's reputable, that they can trust, because I work with reputable vendors. So for every time I get, a recommended vendor, I put it on my list, so I can give options as soon as I'm asked.
Good.
That's what I do.
Cool.
So, thinking about prospect is not prospecting. Have to put that in there. You cannot just think about it. We have to act. That's the month, right? We cannot just think about people. You actually have to reach out to these people, period. You have to reach out and say, hey, did you eventually choose that paint color? Whatever the notion of the conversation, you have to reach out. I prioritize all my prospecting. I know I didn't start like this, and I mentioned I have Evernote. I started to use Evernote for all my scheduling since 2015. And when I looked at how I started Evernote and compared to today, it's two worlds of difference, but I started. And I used to be like just a laundry list and like you just whatever, like, but now like things are becoming very laser focused and I get stuff done and I put stuff in order. So the same thing with prospecting. A lot of your prospecting is going to be like, whatever, I gotta call this person or that, I gotta call this person, I gotta call. But then you start to rate, and I know I spoke to, you start to create formulas in your head of how you're sifting and prioritizing your clients, and it becomes like second nature. You know what, this and this and this person are probably the best people I have to call now, and then these people can wait a week from today. So this model, you start to build out models in your head about who you need to prospect first. Go ahead.
Okay, so you said you used Evernote.
I still use it.
Oh, you still use it?
You still use it, yes.
That's how you keep organizing your notes and on what you should.
And then I use Google Calendar, and in Google Calendar, you're not on the scheduling, but just on top, you can put just a task, and I put call people, and every week I have prospect, I click that, and those are the priority people that I need to call. I still do that today. I have a bunch of people I call during the day, but then I have very intentional people that I call about, future business development. Repetition wins the game. I told you that there's a client that I prospected for 2.5 years just to schedule an appointment. That actually turned eventually into a transaction, and not one, probably a handful of transactions. So I guess I cannot guarantee when you will bear fruit of your prospecting, but I know it will bear fruit eventually. So the whole deal is repetition is really what wins the game in prospecting. And you can pull all sorts of data I can throw at you, but some people say you need to contact somebody 7 times. I say call until you get an appointment, period. Like, just never give up. And the harder the person is to reach, oftentimes those are probably going to be your best clients. That means people are really busy, and that means, they have a lot of important things to do, and it's really important to get there. Be disciplined, follow up, use powerful tools if you need them. I tried every CRM, all these letters, get confused. Everybody has a letter to their company names now. But every CRM, you can use whatever you want, whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you keep on prospecting. I have Excel spreadsheets. I rated all my clients, and I rate them, and then I'm actually going to revamp my MailChimp so I could drip on people at least once a month, and content write and drip on people. But whatever instruments or whatever tools, KW has a bunch of CRMs. I mean, you can go from the cheapest to the most, but you just have to do it. That's all I could say. I started my prospecting career So I started in 05, 08 I went into the repo since 2012, I actually knew that I had to start like revamping my business, recreating what we talked. I was making 200 calls a day.
Wow.
Yeah. So I did that for about 2 years. So what I'm saying is whatever you have to do to recreate, but prospecting is what's going to revamp your business from a low and you're working your way up. But you have to burn your phones. Like you have to push as much out and then eventually it's going to come in. But you have to have, so every time my business slows down, guess what I do? I prospect. I increase my prospecting. So I would say probably January. You know what happened during COVID? I was like, man, this is the best time to prospect.
Yeah.
I got on my phone, I called every investor, I called every builder, I called everybody. I was like, man, nobody got anything to do. This is the best time to prospect. I was like, hey, what you doing? What are you thinking? Like, I would just grind everywhere for like 2 months straight. I was like, this is fun. Everybody's answering their phone. So what I'm saying is like, you have to like, you know, like right now is actually, I know for a lot, everybody's like, but actually right now is a really good time to prospect because things are slowing down. So you have to up your game in prospecting. You have to hear the sad stories, the good stories. People vent a lot right now. It's going to get worse, but this is part of our service, right? Maybe you just got to listen to people. You know, I lost a job, you know, I don't know how to make my payment, whatever it is, but you know, we got to add more services to our prospecting than just what's rates and you know, let me show you what, you know, things are selling for, what's the value of your house. Like we have to create I'd say, what is your value, right? What is your value proposition when you call your people? What is it truly that you're bringing in value in the conversation that's going to help your clients? What is it? So if you call me after this meeting, like, what would you have to say to me to capture my attention? That would be your value proposition. So if you call me and said, David, I got a builder who wants to sell a house, can you go to, that's a value proposition because it's up my alley, I like new construction, but, so I'll be like, yeah, that captured my attention. But if you call me and like, hey, I have a listing in, you know, Spokane, new construction, like, can you help me sell that? I'll be like, nah, that's not my will. Like, there's no value there for me. So it's the same thing with your clients. Every time you call your client, what is your true value proposition during the conversation? You have to throw one thing at them. Just at least one. But you have to have it. If you don't, it's going to be really hard to keep those clients listening to you. That's why I said, even Wednesday and yesterday, when you tell your clients, hey, did you know about this new community? That's a value proposition.
Can we name drop you?
No, don't name drop me.
Okay.
Well, let's put it this way.
Let's say that you're running this meeting.
If you talk to a lot of people in the community, they know about me, like because I've been in the real estate, just like a lot of people know Patty, because we've just been in the industry long enough. So, I mean, when people name drop me, yes, I use that to name drop a lot of. Yeah.
Or that you've started this community.
Yeah,
Or
so I
something of
started
that
a new
nature.
construction, division, and a lot of builders know about it because we had the symposium. So yeah,
Right.
you can name drop my name, you know, in your conversation, and actually that's a really good instrument. I do that a lot with people, because that builds recognition.
Credibility, yeah.
Builds recognition really fast. So I do piggyback off of other people's, I guess, success.
Like
if you
Eric
can put it that.
Gallo.
Yes.
Yeah.
And last point, like one of the last points is your mindset. When you're prospecting, if you're in a bad mood, don't call anybody. If you are in a bad
Full
mood,
show.
don't call anybody. Your mindset.
So
Go to sleep, grab coffee,
Yeah.
take 2 miles of walk, I don't care. But do not call anybody if you have a bad mood.
Or text.
Or text.
Text
Just
rage.
slow down, usually withdraw yourself from communication. But your mindset is so crucial. People feel where you're at on your energy level, and they register with that so fast. If I came here, I'd be like, guys, rates went up, this is bad. Like, you'd be like, man, his class sucks. Real estate's done. Like, I really mean it, but I'm just here to say, like, yeah, I mean, reality is reality, but in reality is that, there's still thousands of transactions being done. So that's the reality. So still somebody out there is selling and still somebody out there is buying, and we have to up our game in prospecting. We do. And when there's no business, I still have some conversations that I prospected during COVID that are paying dividends today. And I could reference back, like I mentioned, a reference point, I should put that down. A reference point that when I prospected during COVID, it created a reference point for my conversation. Because I called one investor and I said, hey, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm doing this and this and this, and my partner's doing this and this and this. And I was like, oh, that's so awesome. So we kicked it off, we talked, and I was able to bring some value into the conversation, and I learned a lot about what his business is, what's going on in his business. And then when we came out of COVID, it created opportunity, but I had a reference point because he and I were able to talk. So that's what you're doing, is you're creating certain reference points. How does prospecting start? Create your ideal customer. So you gotta figure out, like when I started prospecting, I prospected everyone. I did not have an ideal customer, so I decided to just prospect everybody. Everything, expires, FISBOs, like I mentioned, every sign that's in the community, it doesn't matter. I was just calling every number. I was calling every Craigslist phone number. I was calling anything and anybody. I was actually saving their numbers in my phones. Like this guy calls, I'll come to a couple years I passed by, I was talking to a guy at a commercial building lease, and he's like, oh, you were at my house, you called me when I was FISBO in the house. I was like, cool, I guess you still remember me, I don't remember you. But what I'm saying is, like, I called everybody and anybody. So when you start, you may not have your ideal customer, but eventually you will develop an understanding who you register best with. Some people do really well with expired. Some people do very well with FISBOs. Some people do very well with cold calling and just door knocking, and everybody has their forte. Everybody has their, I would say, niche of what they start off. Build your target list. So start building a list. You should have a list of people that you should contact. Whether it's 5 people, whether it's 10 people, whether it's 20 people, you should have a list. And this is what else, I know we talk about this a lot in prospecting, but your goal is to dive not only and have a conversation with that person, your end goal is to figure out if that person knows anything else in their network about anybody who's interested in buying or selling. It's usually if that person wants to buy or sell, they talk about it, and they're already talking about it with people within their circle, and somebody else is going to pick up on that conversation. We already talked, real estate is a very high theme of conversation on most people's books because everybody talks about it. People like to talk about houses. So your goal or your destination in prospecting is not to only find out what that client is doing, but find out within that network what are other people doing in that in your client's network of people. This is very, you go almost a second tier of networking or prospecting while you are prospecting. So that is the goal, that you never stop on the first tier when you prospect. You try to get into their sphere, I would say. Their sphere. I think that's how you spell it. Of the person you're prospecting. So for example, you and I are going to talk new construction, right? But eventually I'm going to find out who in your sphere is catered to new construction too. Who do you know that has to deal with new construction? whether, you know, it's your mom who's thinking about building or whatever, but what's happening is, you know, brokers are coming to me with their clients who are in the new construction field, and I'm telling them, go back now and find out more information, because there's a potential that you could build more business off of that just one client. So, and that's our goal, is to not only go one tier in prospecting, but go 2 or maybe 3 tiers down. So you're always pulling, I would call it, you're pulling the string in the current. Who else can I find out in that conversation? So when I talk to a builder, I'm not only interested in talking about the builder about his homes, I'm actually interested about who's his investors, who's funding his projects. I'm also interested, you know, how and which subcontractors contribute to it. So I'm pulling a lot of more information out instead of just, let me just say, instead of just talking to that prospect. If you're talking to the buyer, that's great, but you should also say, hey, I know you're buying a house, but, you know, have any of your friends ever considered buying a home also? So you're always pulling the next thing. And people tend to tell you, you know, who their next person, or their, like, people bought homes from us, that while they're buying a home from us, they're building themselves a, you know, custom home, and this home is a transitionary home. So when you find this information out, you understand that there's more value that is being built through this client. Go ahead, Lisa.
So when we're talking about who their investors are, so I'm working with an investor and he used lots of private money and hard money, like private party, hard money, all of it. So are those the investors that you're talking about finding out about, or is there somebody else that other type of people that you're talking about?
So both. So it's really, if you say I have a fix and flipper guy, right? He's using hard money. Well, guess what? That hard money guy is giving hard money to other fix and flippers.
Right.
Well, why wouldn't I pursue those investors too for their listings?
Okay, so those hard money lenders are gonna give us prospects.
Well, or at least they'll give you some idea who other players in the market are, because that's what they talk about.
Right. Or just post all over
Or
social media
give you an
and invest.
understanding, like A, B, and C guy, like does, you know, these homes and so forth. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, like, Nyland Homes is a huge, you know, huge name in the community. Yes, he has a listing broker, but a lot of other brokers have done a lot of transactions with him.
Okay.
Because they call him and say, hey, what kind of inventory you have? He'll send them an inventory, and they do a lot of off deals that never hit the MLS. But if you don't call Nyland, you'll never find out. And Nyland's always pushing a lot of doors, probably about 100 doors a year. And I know a lot of them he offsets to brokers without even taking to the market. So what I'm saying is, always go to the next tier of prospecting. Never prospect on one tier. Go 2, 3, 4 tiers as far as you can with this client. This creates a lot of value.
Is there like an appropriate time to ask for referrals, or do you have to do it? I guess, yeah, is there an appropriate time?
There's never an appropriate time. I think you can always see, like in like traditional prospecting, they use scripts like, oh, we like to use referrals. I think you can rewrite that script, just like I mentioned. Who else in your sphere is thinking of buying a home? Like, you can rewrite the script where it sounds maybe a little bit nicer, but that's something, yeah, you have to adopt in your conversations and process. You cannot just you cannot just finish the conversation with this client. You can't. You have to keep going. This is how you build your books of business. It's the cheapest marketing tool you can use, is prospecting. Everything else costs a lot of money. I mean, I've ran a lot of data, guys. Any good lead, like a good solid lead, costs between $300 to $800. So if you want to spend money on marketing, like, you'd have to spend about $800 on a good lead. But then that means you have to spend maybe $3,000 a month on all garbage leads to get 4 good leads. So that's why a lot of brokers don't spend money on leads, is because it's very expensive to get really good leads. So the best way is just to prospect. I mean, some people have built really good, successful businesses on lead generating, but they spend like $10,000 a month. And most brokers can't start, building their business with spending so much money. And I know of teams and, everybody who spend money on marketing, but when you're starting off, like I mentioned, just burn your phone. Just spend money on getting a good phone every year and just burn it, like, just let it get fried. I mean, I fry my phones, especially during the summer. It says it's too hot. I just keep working. Just tell the phone to keep working. So we talked about you create a list, you prospect, you create a compelling message. What is your value proposition? When you're talking, if you have no value proposition, do not call people, because people feel like you're just wasting their time. You have to have a value proposition. You have to have a good mindset. If you don't, retract, don't prospect, don't present yourself in a very bad way in your community. Just don't. Like, just go get rest, relax, and then come back and prospect. And then nurture your relationships in whatever form and fashion you want to achieve that, and then measure your results. You have to keep track. I used to do it on paper. Now, because I keep a good record on Evernote and my calendars, I could keep track about what have I accomplished in the last 30 days, what have I accomplished in the last 6 months. This is really strong. You have to keep track. I know a lot of you use paper and pen, which is fine, but I would say now organize your paper and pen on a monthly and a weekly basis. Put weekly folders, put monthly folders, put quarterly folders, and then come back to the folders to see what's happening in your business. So this is very crucial, and I would say always set time away for creating your business. So I probably do about 3 weeks of heavy meetings a month, and then 1 week I usually don't do a lot of meetings, because that's where I prospect and I invest, my time nurturing clients. But I'm very intentional how I'm running my business. So 1 week a month, I'm probably prospecting a lot more, which sets appointments for the rest of the 3 weeks. But that's how I keep myself from going insane. Your mindset. You have to keep your mindset very healthy all the time. So maximize. So if you can do 2 hours of prospecting, do 2 hours. If you can do 5 hours, do 5 hours. But, grow into prospecting as much as you can. And people say how long or how much until you get a deal done. Like prospect, and eventually you'll find people who will be motivated or can work with you and so forth. But you have to add more services. A lot of builders are they're very not diverse into services they're offering to their clients, and I think that's hurting their business. So I offer a lot of services to all our array of clients, including a buyer and just a seller. But then over the years, I've been able to learn how to offer services to such a broader client database. That's why I can call an expired, but then I can call an investor. And then I can call a business owner like yourself and give you some value because you're trying to build your businesses. So you gotta eventually figure out how you're slowly catering and bringing value to these clients. Yeah, everybody beats you up on commission and all of that, but go ahead.
What are some of your services that are for broader people, not just specifically?
So, like we mentioned here, your ideal customer. So say you have a buyer, and now you gotta figure out what services are you gonna offer to your buyer. We're doing really simple for you, right? But in your buyer pool, like we said, you're going to have an investor. An investor is in the market only for one reason: he wants to make money. That's the only reason they are in the market. So now, if you want to service an investor, you got to figure out how to help him make money. If you can help him make money, he's going to come back to you. Like a builder wants to build homes. So what are the services that you're going to offer him for him to continue building homes? A developer wants to develop land. So what services? A landowner wants to sell their land and figure out what's the best way that they could save on taxes, on blah, blah, blah. So you slowly start to make your ideal customer and figure out services, and if you can offer one service to that client, they will come back to you. Just one, you don't have to do 1,000. Just one service, if you can offer, and if you can't, make sure you're the bridge to whatever service they want. Make sure you're the bridge. Never say, oh, you know what, here's a phone number, go call Jesse. Like, never do that. Call Jesse and say, Jesse, this guy's gonna call you, be that reference point of contact, introduce him. That's a service that you can offer them. Be the introductory. So if you're a buyer, or you're a seller, whatever, be an introductory to whatever direction they wanna go. We talked about this with Shelly, I think 2 days ago, like, what did we talk, like there's a time in her career, she was going back with brokers to expired listings. The brokers had the home, and then they couldn't sell it, so they brought in Shelly, and Shelly would basically re-interview the clients for a new price point, blah, blah, blah. And those brokers, by bringing Shelly in, would have have the deal completed. And I think that's probably not heavily taught, but I consider partnership with other brokers a very strong tool. Like, very strong tool. Like, if you can't get the job done, find somebody who can help you get the job done, and just be close to them, and that will actually increase your value too. So if I can't lift 100 pounds off the floor, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna call somebody who can. Just a simple analogy, right? But by you standing there and cheering that person on, you're part of it, helping him move that 100 pounds off the floor. So you're kind of doing something just to help them, right? So, I guess just be simple and be humble. If you can't get it done, just be a service of value to a reference point. But because I've done it so much and I've challenged myself to learn how to create value for every, I would say, client that I meet in my database, it takes work, but eventually you learn. But what I'm saying is never remove yourself from being that service. Put in the extra work to be that provider to your client. Like I told you, the easiest script is like, what is your story? If you ask clients, like, what is your story? Why do you have to sell a home? Like, that's like the easiest script. I used that when I sold a lot of distress work, because people they wanted to vent to somebody, and I'll sit there for 30 minutes and listen through their whole, 15 years of financial crash, right? But that's what they wanted, really. They just wanted somebody to hear them out, and that's what I did. I just heard them out. I mean, I had a guy, I remember we door knocked him, he was losing his house. I mean, the guy needed like $1,500 just to move out, and I gave him $1,500. I mean, we made the transaction, but I gave him $1,500 back because that's really what he needed. He cried like 3 times at the meetings, and I just like listened to him. I was like, buddy, like, let me help you, but you gotta move, because this is still the best financial decision for you. Because if you don't do it, it's gonna go to the auctions, you're gonna lose your equity, and you're screwed. So like, I mean, I still helped him, and I gave him $1,500 out of my commission just to give him, and then then the investor cleaned it out, and then he got all fed up about a TV, so I bought him a TV, like, whatever.
Yeah. Like
$300, I bought him a TV, kept the guy happy, right? But what I'm saying is, like, I gave him some value back, even though, like, I mean, but I had to help him, convince him that the transaction was the best thing for him, even though, like, he's losing everything in life. And it was still the best thing, so you have to throw in that value instead of just like, oh, I'm here to sell your house. Well, yeah, I mean, that's our job, but, there's a lot of other value propositions you can do along the line. That is going to be your greatest tool in prospecting. Bring in more variations to what you're offering. Be the bridge builder for those reference. That's why I'm pushing a lot of stuff through Slack, so you can slowly go to these people in the industry, in the community, like for example, yesterday, I'll give you a simple example, like one of our sites, some dumb truck went into and just, brought mud into the streets. And like my text message was blowing up, oh God, I was like, I called my sweeper, like, just get it done, send me the invoice, like, we gotta move on. So like, that's a service I provide as a broker. I'm gonna sell 4 homes on that street. I don't want the builders, chewing me up or me chewing up the builders. I'm not gonna do that. So I'm just gonna provide service. I'm gonna clean the street. I'm a broker, so who cares? Yeah, I sell houses and I clean up streets.
We just pull miracles.
Yeah,
That's
so,
what we do.
and
Cause it
that,
comes back to you.
yeah, exactly. So, like, if I'm gonna get all, arrogant and cocky, like, oh, that's your fault. And I actually know whose fault it is because I was there yesterday morning. I know everybody who's on the site. I could grill that contractor out and make him pay for it. I know who was there. But like, am I gonna do that end of the day for $500? I mean, give or take, somebody has to get it done.
Yeah.
Or we just chew each other up and forget about, doing business in 5 months from today. So this is kind of the value proposition. So I, the broker, got back on my text, like, yeah, I had to find a contractor who's gonna clean up that street. But that's a service I provided for my builders and my developer. That's why they like me. Not because I sell houses, but because I cleaned up the street.
Well, you're a problem solver. You
Yeah,
respond
and
to them.
yes.
Solve a problem, then that, whatever problem it
It's your
is.
new
Their life
slogan.
easier.
Yeah. Yeah,
Believe me, your
exactly.
clients always have problems with houses.
Yeah.
Drainage,
Even new ones,
toilets,
yeah.
whatever. If you throw $100 at them, they'll remember you as the greatest person. I bought garage door openers, I've bought toilets, I've bought faucets, I've bought stuff for clients, just, as a proposition back as value. And they remember you not as the broker, but the guy who bought them the garage door openers, so. But it's fine, part of my prospecting tool, go ahead.
What is your typical closing gift then? I'm just curious.
That's a good question.
I don't have like, I guess I don't like rabbit trail into those kind of aspects. I guess my giving looks a little bit differently. Let's put it this way. So I don't do I used to do different gifts, cards, gift cards, just a variety of stuff. But now it's more of like my services. I give them so much value that it's like end of the day they owe me more than I owe them. But that's
They probably get you a gift, right?
yeah, but I still clean up the streets for them.
Yeah,
So.
of course. Of course.
So that's kind of what it comes down to. But yeah, I gave them different gifts and different concepts. They said when I started my career for 5 years, I gave really good pictures because pictures sit on the wall and people remember you. And I actually had a client that I came back 10 years to list his home, and he's like, here, there's your picture. And I just started in the broker business. So the picture was like $200, I think Thomas Kincaid, right? Yeah, there's a painter like that. So I just bought small pictures, they're about $100, but you can't throw a picture away. So, it was a fairly durable, good quality. So I gave pictures, and they considered them a good gift. Good question. Anything else? Anybody else? So action. This month is about action. Next week we're not gonna have anything because you're gonna be action eating and Thanksgiving turkey. Exactly. You're all gonna be busy. So hopefully you enjoyed this morning and let's keep at it. Thank you. If you have questions.